The WAD, World Association of Detectives, was established in 1925, and it's a group of just over 900 members worldwide, representing 80 different countries around the world, and they're professional investigators and working in the security industry.
Education, relationships, and friendship.
Professional, courteous, and strength.
Diverse, challenging, and inspiring.
Friendship, cooperation, and professionalism.
Experience, networking, and friendship.
WAD has helped professionalize investigators all over the world by us being able to meet in different countries and learn the type of investigation that is done and is successful in so many other places.
Putting the WAD logo on my business card and joining WAD was the best business decision that I ever made in growing a young business.
I keep going back to the sort of the social side of it as well. You do end up developing trusted friendships and relationships, business relationships and friendships around the world, and that is pretty unique. It's not every organisation allows you to do that, and with the WAD it does. You develop trusted, professional and personal relationships around the globe.
Hi everybody, hi Matthias, glad to see you. Welcome to our new series of webinars and our third webinar with Matthias Willenbrink on how to obtain data in official European online registers. Just before we start, I'd like to remind you that this is the first time that we opened our webinars for the public. So I use this opportunity to invite everybody to check out our website and to see the special offer for joining WAD that we have now, along with all the benefits that WAD provides for your business. A few words about Matthias before we start. Matthias works as a private investigator since 1993. Before he worked as police detective in the German police for 13 years. He developed 2 successful PI agencies, sold them, and today operates as agency specialized on counter-fraud services for the international insurance industry, together with his partner Detlef Warnke in Germany. Matthias is a well-accepted frequent international speaker on investigative topics. He received a number of international awards, including the Investigator of the Year award and so on. Matthias, thank you very much for speaking for us today. So now I'd like to pass the word to you. The floor is yours.
Yeah, welcome everybody. It's good to see you all here, and welcome to the next edition of the WAD seminars. Nothing more to say about me, so I would say, yeah, let's start right away. As I discussed with Dan Russo what we can do for the next seminars, his suggestion was let's do something very practical, and I thought, okay, that's what do we do? And it's quite up. Let me see. I need to share my. Alexei, can you see my screen, or do I need to share it somewhere? Let me see. Alex?
Yeah, Matthias, you need to push the share screen button, the green one.
Yeah. I'm just looking for the button. So I have so much screen. Yeah, too many screens on my computers. Good. Okay, I'm now here. Let me see. Where this one? Good. Yeah, great. Looks. You can see my screen.
Yeah. Now it works.
So good, great. So the best idea we had was let's talk about investigations. So and if we talk about investigations, yeah, the next question. Let me see. What does it mean, conduct an investigation? And investigation is a systematic, minute and thorough attempt to learn the facts about something complex or hidden. what we going to talk about is not hidden at all. It's just a little complex. To put it in a nutshell, the investigation is simply the art to obtain information. When I left police in '93, my unit just had 2 computers, and both computers were donations of myself. So it was, so to say, the stone time. And that time, nothing was online available. It was all about physical word. Of course, you had a central police computer with some police records, but that was it. No internet, no nothing. In these modern times, I would say we spend at least half of our work in the virtual world. And if you look to the virtual world, you see there's so many different fields we need to know something about. And today we just speak about a small, tiny part of it, which is the part of the official registers and relating data providers. And that is even focused in my speech about what we have here in Europe. What I'm going to tell you is absolutely not rocket science. It's, I would say, it's standard knowledge every European PI should have. But we are a worldwide association, so I feel it's a good idea to give you an overview what you can expect and what is available at all here in Europe. If we are speaking about electronic registers, then of course the first thing which comes into our mind are company registers, small business registers, maybe land registers are very often required, residential registers or electoral rolls in those countries where now residential registers apply, bankruptcy, insolvency registers, trademarks, licenses, bar registers, vehicle registers, and so on. So there's much data we wish to have online, and partly it is, but partly it isn't, as we will later learn. The first thing we need to understand is that data is mostly not available on a federal level. There's very, very few data which is available on a federal level, especially in those states like Germany, which is a federal republic with 16 different states. I would say commercial registers, this is the only thing which you really find on a federal level. Anything else is mostly a little lower on state level, on county level, or sometimes even on community level. And that is an important understanding we need to have where to look. And whenever you have to deal with a country like Germany, Switzerland, or even Austria, it's all fragmented. So in Switzerland, you have all these cantons, and the Austrians all as well have some different states. So you always need to get you informed on what level you have to look, and don't expect that everything will be online on a federal level. That's mostly isn't. How are the registers provided? Today we are just speaking about the state registers. I don't talk about all this private stuff. We just concentrate on state registers, which are data which is on different ways provided by the state authorities. And there is one version where the states are offering these registers in direct public authority portals, which are directly maintained and established by the state authorities. That is something what you very often have. However, there comes some disadvantages with that, because these portals are mostly not so comfortable. The usability, the user interfaces are very often complex and a little poor, and very often they do miss certain search options. For example, you can obtain, or can you look up data on a company's name, but you cannot look up data on a name of the manager, which is of course completely useless. Mostly we need to look up names, and then you very often end into a dead end with a public authority portal. However, there are some other solutions. For example, in Austria, the government has partly assigned private third-party providers to run their portals. That is sometimes a little more, so you find a better usability, but basically you are accessing exactly the same data, but it's just provided by a third-party provider. And then you have other kind of third-party providers which do not have any contracts with the authority, but they do grab data. That means they are monitoring all the public publications, and they put all the content from the public registers into an own database, and then they make this own database searchable in mostly all directions. So you very often you have much more search options if you are using third-party providers which are grabbing official data. So you can say the quality of data is mostly the same. Sometimes you have some time delays, but the usability and the search options you have with third-party providers is mostly much better than you are looking or using a direct public authority portal. From that point of view, that is the next thing you need to understand if you have an idea where to look, what kind of different providers I might use, and what provider fits my needs to the very best. Now, if you talk in Europe, you have to talk about this fucking Data Protection Act, GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulations in the European Union, which applies since May 2018, and which had a big impact on private investigations. Not so much on that way that things you could obtain before are nowadays not obtainable. That is not the problem. The accessibility of data has not changed too much. However, what changed is the perceiving of the people. The people are mostly nowadays, they are completely aware about GDPR, and that sometimes has an impact on normal investigations. But the databases are mostly the same, just more regulations, more formularities and this kind of stuff. But I think it makes our life a little harder. We need to learn a little more, but basically it's not such a big thing. What is important is to understand that corporations are legal entities. And that means from the point of view of data protection, a corporation is not a person. And that is a reason why it's quite easy to obtain information about corporations, because they are legal entities. If it comes to obtain information about a natural person, let's say a managing director or a shareholder of a company, then he is a person, he is a personal individual, and he, of course, has the complete protection of the GDPR. And that is one of the main reasons why it's not impossible, but it's much more complicated and much more complex to obtain information about individuals, even if these individuals are members to a corporation. Another thing which is very, very often important for investigations, what if we deal with small business, with tiny one-man shows, with small companies which are normally never registered in the corporation, in the official commercial register, because you normally just find legal entities as a limited corporation in the corporate register. You don't find any small businesses. But if our suspects run a small business, then it's much more complicated to find out about that business. And if it comes to the online opportunities, they are pretty much limited, as you will later see. There are some, but it's not always possible to get information about small businesses. And the same applies if we are talking about persons, addresses, locations. There's something available, but even that is not easy to handle, and there are limits which I will later on introduce into more details. Generally, you can say as more personal information is, as more protected it is. And access to personal information is on the public level very limited. Full personal information is hardly available direct online, but sometimes indirectly, and or you have to make an official inquiry, and that means you have to prove a reasonable interest to know, or a legal interest to know. What that means, I will go later on more in detail. Another important thing to consider is what identifies a person. The personal identifiers are quite different, even in the European Union, and even more if you look on a global scale. For example, in America and the United States, mostly a person together with a social security number makes a perfect identification of the person. Let's say if we talk about Poland, in Poland they have a PESEL number, in Spain they have the NIE number, in the entire Scandinavia they have personal numbers. In Germany we have nothing. We don't have any individual numbers. Of course we have a social security number, but this social security number we have here in Germany does not appear at all except on your social security document. So it's absolutely worthless for investigative purposes. And the same is with the passport number. You cannot use the passport number for any kind of searches in any kind of databases. The personal identifier here in Germany is mostly the name, the first name, and the date of birth. With those three pieces of information, you can identify a single person. And that is quite different in different countries. And that is important for you to know. If you want to investigate, you should have an understanding what piece of personal identifier you should have or you should request at your client to make your colleague in the other country able to look up that person on a sufficient level. And that is something what is, or even, let's say, in the Russian hemisphere or in entire Eastern Europe, mother names and father names are quite important. So this is something what in Germany, nobody would ever ask you for your father's name or mother's name. This is completely unusual. However, if you are dealing with Russians, it's always important to have in mind that you should try to obtain father's name and mother's name. Another thing which is quite important is these name adoption issues. So especially if it comes about people who come over from other countries to our countries or anything else, they have names which are sometimes complicated to handle for us. For example, if we are talking, let's say, a name like Peter Meyer, I would say in the entire Western hemisphere, Western Europe, everybody would instantly realize, okay, Peter must be the first name, and Meyer most likely is a family name or a surname. However, if you get a name, let's say a Chinese name, Ming Gao, what is the first name? What is the last name? This is definitely not easy to know. And what sometimes happens is if these people come over to Germany and apply for any kind of permit, then it happens that even the authorities are mixing up the names. So you end up in finding an official name in an official register in the mixed up position. So you have the first name as a surname and vice versa. So that happens quite often. The same is if you have people coming from countries like Russia where they have Cyrillic spellings, then very often the adoption to the Western European letters are interpreted differently. So you should be aware that there are different kind of spellings. And since, especially since most official registers do not have any fuzzy logic, so you must have in mind that there might be different kind of versions you need to check. And the same stuff is if you deal with Arabic people who sometimes have really long names. Let's say Abu, Mohammed, Mustafa, Ahmed, and at the very end, you have no idea. Oh, fuck, what is the forename? What is the surname? And very often the authorities condense it to some parts, and you have no idea, oh, what did they do? So it's really complicated to find people with these complex versions of names. And sometimes they even give their nicknames, and you find nicknames in official registers. That really happens. And that is something what we as professional investigators should have in mind. If we deal with names from abroad, we need to think twice. What does it mean, this name mean, and what potential errors might occur so that they may end up in databases in a complete different kind of name spelling. Tools. Yeah, now we talk about what tools are required to do a good research. By the way, I have no feedback. Can you hear me, by the way? So, hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, because I don't, oh, that's great. Okay, just want to double check. Good, okay, tools required. What do we need? Of course, what we need for international investigations is, of course, a browser with an integrated translation tool, which is, if you use a standard cutting-edge state-of-the-art browser, it's mostly included. And if it's not, it's easy to install an additional app so that you have an automatic translation. That is really an important thing you should have. You should have an efficient snipping tool with which you can use to cut out screens, information, and copy it to your research document or whatever. And what is really important, especially if you download, let's say, commercial register data, then it's often provided in PDF form, in a non-scanned PDF form. If you have scanned PDF, then you can do nothing with it. There's no way for an automatic translation except if you do an OCR translation, but this is not very practical. So, however, if you can obtain PDF documents which are text-based, then it's quite easy with modern tools like if you have the latest version of Microsoft Word, which is really able to, I would not say translate every language, but many, many languages to a really high level, I would say. I checked that, for example, with Dan Russo. I got me a German document. I used the automatic translation into Romanian language, and yeah, Dan told me, yeah, it's most likely okay. You can get all the points. It's not perfect, but you can definitely get all the points in the document. So the translation, the automatic translation you nowadays have available in tools like Word are really good. And that is something what you can use if you, Word can open PDF documents. So if you store a PDF document and open it with Word, convert it to a Word format, then you can simply translate it automatically, translate it to English or some other languages, and then you have a translated version of the document you can use for your reporting, and that helps quite a lot. The most important tool, so to say, is a bookmark database. So I highly suggest everybody, every day when I do investigate, when I do any kind of desktop researches, I come across or come across to new web pages I've never been before, which are really interesting. And I always have, I have a bookmark database into the browser, which is, every browser has it. It's just the way how you use it, how you make subfolders to find within thousands of records that one you are looking for. And the good thing with these modern browsers is you can even synchronize the database. So what you register with your email, and then you can access your database from all devices you are using. And that is quite good. I will later show you something. You have an example here. So these are basically the 4 tools you need. And then you can go. So now we come slowly into the practical part of this presentation. Where to start? If you have to do anything in Europe, then the best European hub I can suggest to start is this one, this eJustice Europe EU. This site is an amazing hub. You can find nearly everything. You can locate European courts. You can find links to all European registers. So this is absolutely the most important link you need to know if you want to research, or if you want to know something about how the things are running in Europe. So you can find it here. And this is, by the way, it's offered in all European language, and they even will maintain the English language, even if the Brits will go to leave, but that is fine. So it's easy to read, and you don't need any translation tool. It's offered in all kinds of different languages. Let's start with this one. This, for example, is a European company search. So this is a function offered on this platform, which automatically searches, I will not say all, but it searches all accessible European company databases. With one search, you can look up in all Europe one company name. So that is something what is still in the beta stage. I think it's not available since a long time. So there's I never use it, by the way, because I mostly go directly to the national registers, because they are then I see more in detail what's going on. I don't like this abbreviated interfaces. I'm not really sure what's happening in the back. However, for a quick search, this is okay. If you want to have an overview about registers in the national level, then you find here on that page a registers link, and then you have something like this one here, registers, and you see on here the flags, and if you click on the flags, you go directly, you will be forwarded directly to the relevant registers, and that is quite helpful. It's not always updated. I realize sometimes that they are a little slow in updating it, but I would say it's a great start to have an overview in what country you can obtain what, and what is really good. They even explain you some more background about the registers, and that's really great. On the other hand, for example, let's say the European insolvency registers are as well outlined here on the hub. However, if you, for example, let's take Germany here. If you go into Germany, then you will realize they have a register, but it's very limited. We will later go into details of that. So the register data in Germany on insolvencies is just published for 2 weeks. And after 2 weeks, you can just look up under certain conditions if you have some more information. And from that point of view, it's very fragmented and not really very useful. However, there are third-party providers you can use which are not limited to just 2 weeks. So from that point of view, we do have it. However, it's not on the first glance, you have the impression, oh, that's fine. Every European country has an open, available insolvency register. That's not as easy. You will see as soon you try that. But at least there is something which you can use. We have the European Trademark Register, which is quite easy to use. Trademarks are important. If you do asset trading, then trademarks are important. And as well, sometimes if you go about locates trademarks, you will never find complete addresses. However, you find a certain context which you can use for further searches. And from that point of view, even trademark registers make sense to use if it's even not about trademark. And from that point of view, this is something what we as well use very often. Same applies to the European patent registers. We very seldom look up patents from the reason of patent investigations. But if it comes about persons, even a European patent register can get you some information which you might need and use for further investigations. And what is really interesting is this one, the Prado database. The Prado database is a database in which all European identity documents are described. You cannot obtain or cannot look up any personal data over there. However, if you deal with investigations, you very often have to evaluate documents. And it's sometimes really difficult because the states are changing their document formats and their standards, their technical standards, and to evaluate whether a certain document fits to a certain state, this Prado database is extraordinarily helpful because it shows you the document, it shows you marks, protecting marks for forgery, so you have a good opportunity to check a document for forgery marks, and this is all outlined here on the Prado document database, and it's a really amazing tool. So now we are go to the national samples. Let me see, now I have to switch over to my browser to get you some. Where's my browser? This one over here, no. Just a second. Okay, good. So here's my browser. If I want to look up something, I go into my database. So this is the bookmark database over here. I go down. Let's start with the European level. Here. This is where I have all the European databases I'm frequently using. However, I always already introduced that in my presentation before, so we will not. Yeah, we can have a look into Prado, for example. That's why not? No. So you can look.
Matthias, just to let you know, we still see the presentation file.
Ah, that's not good. Let me see. Where is
I think I had the same issue when I was trying.
Yeah,
to
you need to
change
the. I know. Let me see where. Oh, I'm not really. I see the command line. That's very upper, but let me see.
Maybe you can stop sharing and then try sharing again and choose the right screen.
Yeah, makes mostly. Yeah. I will do that. Let me see. Good. Okay. Does it work now? You should have it. Do you see it?
Yeah. Now it works. Perfect.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so
great. Thank you.
Let's say the documents you can see here. Let's say this is a passport. Of course, you can always switch the language over here. Let me see. Where's the language switcher? Anyway, so if you are on a website which does not offer the language switch, you just go on the right mouse button. If you have such a translation tool installed, you go here. So I say, okay, translate to English. This is a function you very often use and need if you do international desktop investigations. So and then you see this here, for example, and then you can go search by document. And so you see exactly how should the document look like. You have a detailed explanation, what version applies to what time, and it explains you what the numbers mean. So this is an absolutely great tool to handle documents. So what else we do have on this European level, which I haven't already addressed? National company, yeah, patent, we already had that. So for those of you who deal with process serving, I highly recommend this page because this explains exactly how process serving has to be done in the European Union. And that is quite helpful to know. We ourselves just do process serving if some colleagues are asking us, but this is something what is really helpful for those guys who are involved in process serving. Good, let's go to the national level. So let's say I will start with Germany. So here are my German registers. I will introduce you at first with the, let me see, the German the company register. Here, look, this has now, let me see, you see here, you can even switch the language. You don't need to use the automatic translation tool. You go to English. So you have, it's quite comfortable. It's easy to use. Let's say we put in here a company's name. This is a company name I recently had. look here. So you find what you find here is an overview about all publications referring to that company, including the registration of the commercial register. You have to understand in Germany, there is no federal commercial register. The commercial registers are mostly allocated as a relevant district court where the company has its seat. So that means in this case, the district court of Berlin-Charlottenburg, that is where all Berlin companies are located and registered to. And that means this number, HRB, that means nothing else. It's an abbreviation for commercial register category B. There's a category alpha that is for non-limited companies who are registered voluntary. And the Bravo register is for those limited companies who are forced to be registered. And then you have the number. So in practical terms, you find such a number in, I guess we have 700 district courts, roughly 700 district courts in Germany. So you might find not the 6-digit one, because the smaller courts mostly have just 5 digits, but you find the same number maybe in all different kind of registers, of commercial registers. And therefore, you always need to have the register number in combination with the court where the register is kept. And then you have everything you need. So here, let's have a look. What do? They start with the, let's use, in this case, for example, let me see, can we get, this is in English, but you see that the wording is not in English. So, and now you go onto the right button, you apply the English automatic translation, and you see a translation, and now you have a chance to understand what you can find. So let's say we are investigating this company. One point which is important is if you are using the automatic translation, you should, before you do it, you should have in mind that the company names will as well translate it if possible. And that is sometimes confusing. And from that point of view, have a look on it. And that happens even for names. If you do use automatic translation and there's a name which has an equivalent in English, then the name is even translated. And that's obviously something what you do not want. And therefore you have to have an eye on it, whether the automatic translation may translate your company name, and that's not good, or may even translate a personal name. So at the first glance, have a look where are company names, where are personal names, mark them and or write them down, and then you are using the automatic translation. And then you have the English wording. And now you see, okay, new entries, what means that is first entry record when the company appeared. So we open this. We again have the same issue. You just see it in German, and it doesn't help you that it's here in English, but you again use your automatic translation. The first thing, you look, what are the names? Let's see, because you see in this case, the managing director, Yassin Damar. And this is something what is interesting, what I forget during my presentation before. You see here, Damar Decimal Yassin. What does it mean? We in Germany always, normally, if you would ask a person, what's your name? Then they will automatically say, oh, my name is Matthias Willenbrink. I would never say, my name is Willenbrink Matthias. However, if you ask Dan Rusu in Romania, what is your name? Then very often the Romanians say, oh, my name is Rusu Dan. So they do it on the other way. And that very often happens even in these documents. In Germany, it's easy. The decimal always means the left part is a surname and the right part is a first name. And that is something that is what I experienced not applies for all countries. So very often you find something in a record and you have no idea, oh, what is the first name? What is the last name? You have to have in mind the different cultural behavings. And from my experience, all countries in the Eastern European hemisphere tend to write surnames first and then the first name. And that is something what you should always have in mind. So now we have, here's the names. You write down the names just in case that they will not be translated. And then you go onto the automatic translation tool and you translate. And now you have something what is, translated on a level that you have a complete understanding what happened here. So you see the Whirlwind GmbH based in Nanjing Street number 8 in Germany. Was founded, you see, it was published on 21st of November 2013. And you even find here names and the personal identifier, the complete date of birth, which is really important for further searches, because if you don't have an address, you have no chance to obtain it, maybe on this name, because this is I would say it's a rather seldom name. But if you deal with people like Peter Meyer, Bernd Müller, or whatever, then you have hundreds, if not even thousand people with the same name. And from that point of view, the date of birth is a really important personal identifier you need for further investigations. And this kind of databases gives you, on a very easy way, without any costs, a direct access to that information. And that is quite helpful. Let's go. So, search results. What else do they? So what they publish is all information about when was a company founded. A change means whenever a company has to or changed the address, changed shareholder, changed anything in the bylaws or in the name, whatever, it's all a change. And that means you should find a change record, a relating change record in the commercial register. So you go on change. So you see here what happened. So you see here, let's do a translation. So you have it. Okay, so no longer managing director, this person, and new director, this person. So this is the change what happened here. And on this way, you can obtain all changes in the history of the company. And what is quite interesting is the annual accounts. So this is this one here. Yeah, let's do it in English, more easy. So financial statement. So you go here, financial statement. You have to put in here such a captcha code. Sometimes not as easy to see. So you have it here. You can go on PDF. And the problem now is this is a text document in German language. This is mostly not so much useful for you. So you save the document as PDF. I already have it. I'll do it again. Good. So then you open a Word file. I would go on layout landscape because the landscape document. So now I open the PDF. Where's my PDF here? And now it imports the PDF file as a document. Before you can translate it, it's important you need to save it in the modern Word format. That means you go here, go on save, and you put away the PDF and make sure you have the Word document format, and then you store it. That's important. If you do not store it, then you don't have the chance to do the translation. So, and then you go here, you have the automatic, let me see, where is it? Translate. The window I need is, so we go here, translate entire document. So we go from German to English, we go on translate, and it's automatically translates it. Look, and now you have, I will make it a little bigger. So you have a translation which is not perfect, but it's quite okay. So, and to get this again as a PDF document, you just go on save or export to PDF, and then you have a translated version of that document. Let's say we'll take this. So now we have the PDF in English instead of German. And that is a very easy, efficient way to deal with documents in which you have obtained in different languages. It even works in Czech, in Romanian. I tried that in most European languages. It works quite fine, even in Russian, but the Russian translator is unable to translate these special terms, but the rest is okay. So from that point of view, it mostly works quite fine. So yeah, that's it. However, if we look here, you see a record, a historic record, a set of records from foundings, changings, and the financial statements. An important part which you cannot obtain here are, for example, the documents which had been provided to the commercial register. Let's say the statutes, the bylaws of the company, or the founding document of the company. So how to get that? For that, this register is unable to help you. However, there's another. This is, by the way, this is the Bundesanzeiger, that is the federal publishing authority. That is really a state authority. So it's not a third-party provider. This is definitely a direct publication from the state. The same is, let's say we go back to Germany, and we now want to have the documents, all documents which are provided to the company. You can obtain that, but not here. Then you have to go here to the commercial register documents. So then you go on normal search. Let's do the same stuff here. You see this is much more poor. So the surface, the user interface is really lousy here. But anyway, we can work with that. We go here, obtain the same stuff. Look, so now we go on DK, this is a document view. And now this is I can drill down here, and all documents which are available to that company, from the first document, the bylaws, every changings of shareholders, all the stuff is here. But the disadvantage of this portal is you cannot download it for free, like you can do it in the British version, for example, the Companies House. That is the most easy thing I ever see. In the Companies House in Great Britain, you can download everything without registration, without any cost. You just click on it, you have it. But it's not as easy here. So if you want to have the documents, then you go, you have to open an account. The good thing is you don't need to be a resident here. You just open an account, you provide a credit card, and then you can simply, you click on everything what you like, and then you see what it costs, and you go on download. Then it asks you to register yourself, and then you get as PDF documents all individual things which ever had been provided to the commercial register on that special company. So it runs not as, it's not a perfect user interface. However, and this is as well a direct database which is provided directly by the state authorities. This is not a third-party provider. If it comes to a third-party provider, I will show you something that, let me see. I'm sure. One of the best third-party providers we have here in Germany is Kreditorform. However, the disadvantage of Kreditorform is that you need a subscription. You need, and the basic fee is we are paying roughly $1,000 a year, and then you pay $25 up to $50 per inquiry. The good thing is they offer all data compiled into one document. You find you can look in all directions, and that is quite helpful. But basically, it's nothing else but the same data you find here. However, the data is condensed into a database, and that makes it much, much more easy to use, and they even offer you the reporting in English if you like. So I can even go for different kind of languages, and they provide me that results into that. So of course I could go in here and I could collect all this information. However, I most likely pay as well. I would say if I collect all the documents, I end up at 30, 40, 50 euros, and I spend 2 hours of time. So it's much more easy simply to go on the created from a third-party provider and then pay one time and I get everything. So that is much more efficient. The problem with the third-party providers is that it's not always easy to get registered if you are from abroad. And even with the state authorities, for example, I tried to register myself for the Netherlands commercial register to get a full access, and they simply do not reply to abroad addresses. So I tried to register 4 times, and they never sent me documents. And that is a little strange because from the European law, it's absolutely mandatory that every state offers the information to all other European member states. So from the legal point of view, it must be possible for me, being a German, a member of the European Union, I must have full access on the Netherlands commercial register, but in practical terms, not as easy to get it. The same I had recently or last year with the DVLA in UK. So under certain circumstances, you can request data at the British DVLA, and I tried to do so. And they told me that no, that since I'm not resident in UK, they could not provide me their data. So I remind them to the European law, and then they applied for Brexit. Mostly, I'm sure I was guilty, no idea. However, it was quite complex with them to negotiate. So from that point of view, it was just a testing. I knew that the ABI, the British Association of Investigators, has some guys with a direct access, and it was just a try because I was curious whether it works. In practical terms, I would always recommend to you, whenever you need some kind of direct requests, get in touch to your local WD colleague, and he is much more educated about it, and he has much more experience. It normally, from my point of view, it does not make sense to request data in abroad authorities directly via phone or email or fax. Sometimes I'm trying it just for educational purposes, but mostly it's really a time-consuming disaster from that point of view. Yeah, there are some difference between the theory of law and the practical terms, the real practical life, then that's quite normal. Let me see, we have 50 minutes left, so let me see. Is there something? I will show you something. For example, one example before we finish that. Let's go. Let's say land registry. In Germany, you don't have any land registry available, but I can tell you, for example, let's go to Czech Republic. I recently had a case in Czech Republic. We go here, land registry. Where is it? Czech Republic. Here. So. Of course, I do not know a single word of Czech language, so I go directly into the translation tool. It gives me this page in English. I go and find a building. The problem is I had a case in, what was it, Novi Dvori. The problem is you definitely need to make sure to know, because you have very often you have village names which are frequently available in the same country, and then you need to make sure that you know in what county district it is. In this case, Novi Dvori, I can remember, was several times available. However, that belongs to the county of Litoměřice, and so this is something what I need to know. So I look up that land registry book, then I can go here and can put in an address. Let's say, I think about this here. I go here and I find directly, voila, this is the owner of that of that, and it can even drill down into the cadastre map, and it's so amazing what you can see, and it's completely for free. You don't have to pay anything, and the same if you open any PDF documents, you are using the translation and you have all the information available. The problem with this languages, even in England, you have something like this. You can obtain addresses, but you cannot obtain by names, for example. What is, of course, relevant and important for example, for asset tracings. However, if you want to do that, then you need to look for third-party providers who may offer you that kind of search lookup. In the standard land registries, you most likely don't find that. However, I would be happy if I would have something like this in Germany. In Germany, it's completely manual work. So there are some electronic accesses, but these are limited to notaries and banks. So for normal PI, it's impossible in Germany to have access, online access to any land registry. However, this is a quick example. So we can do this for, let's say, 100 hours. If I show you all my links, this is certainly not what we want to do today. I want to go back to let me see, to my presentation now, because we are slowly running out of time. Alexei, can you confirm whether do you see my presentation again?
Yes. Now I see.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what if it's not online? That is an important question, because very often you will end up in a situation you checked everything, what is available, you have all your bookmarks, and then at the very end you know, okay, shit, I can't gather the information online. So what to do? The fact that an information is not available online does not mean it's not accessible. It just means, and that has to do with the European data protection law, they can just give you that information under certain provisions, certain conditions. And the terms we have in, for example, in German law is two different terms. You have to have a reasonable interest to know, or you need to prove a legal interest to know. What is the difference? A legal interest means that the case you're working on has something which it qualifies to go to court. It doesn't mean necessarily you already had gone to court. It just means you have a legal issue which you could bring to court, and that is a legal interest. A reasonable interest is something what has nothing to do with any court issues. For example, let's say you want to look up an old friend. You want to know the address of an old friend. And so this is something what you can easily do in just proving or making a statement that you are just using that information for that purpose you are doing. And that's it. So it's easy. However, it's a formal thing, and you can mostly not do it online. And the nasty thing in Germany, for example, is the authorities are very reluctant to work on email. So you mostly can phone them up, clarify who is responsible, how much money you might have to pay. And then what it's mostly easy to convince them is, okay, can you at least accept my inquiry as an email? They mostly do not answer via emails and send you a letter. So that means in practical terms, you mostly wait 7 days until you have a reply, sometimes even more. And in these Corona times, even much more. I recently waited on a address inquiry 8 weeks. That was a real disaster. However, anyway, so that is something what is an opportunity. It needs to know the law, because the law exactly outlines under what provisions you can inquire what data to what authority. So this is something what you most likely are not able to do if you are not experienced in that country. So that is the stage when you definitely need to get in touch to a colleague. And then the colleague is hopefully able to deal with that. However, you have to understand you need to provide information. Sometimes you need to provide the power of attorney of your client even, because if the authority has no understanding what you're talking about and for what you need that information, then they will always deny to provide it. So that is a, it needs some kind of experience how to do it, but it's very often it's possible. Yeah, so to put everything into a nutshell, the availability of data is very fragmented. So it's not this kind of paradise we like to have. There are no European standards on a national level, so there is a lot of similarity, but it's not a really same standard. And despite the European data law is adopted as direct law, so this is really valid. It's a direct law in every European country. However, the disadvantage is the GDPR has 60 opening clauses, what means certain parts which the different nations can do their own interpretations and can have their own regulations. And that makes GDPR always something what we call a hybrid law. That means reading the GDPR does not bring you anywhere, because then you just see the European version. However, to have a complete understanding, you need to make sure that you as well read the national data protection law to find out whether they made use of any of the 60 different opening clauses. And this is really complicated disaster. And not being a lawyer, I would say it's nearly impossible to understand the law. But this is something what we fight every day with, and that is something we are, over the time, I got really, very deep into that. The official portals often miss a lookup search for personal names. That is the point when you definitely need to look for a third-party provider who can do it a little better than the official portals. Always have in mind the personal identifier, which is especially important if you deal with names which are quite common. If you have extraordinarily seldom names, for example, my name just exists 2 times in Germany. So then it's easy. You don't need to have any personal identifier. If you look for Matthias Willenbrink, this person just exists 2 times. And from that point of view, but if it's a more common name, you need to have an identifier. Otherwise, you will end up nowhere. Yeah, and if you might be able to get, if you're really good in all this stuff, then it's good to get a first impression. However, at a very early stage, it's highly recommended that you get in touch to one local WAD member who has local understanding. And I'm pretty sure he will most likely, or he or she will most likely be able to solve your issue much more efficient for less money and time than you have to pay. Yeah, so thank you very much. We now spent 1 hour. I thank for your patience, and whenever you have any questions, I'm free to have you to get your questions. Many thanks.
Thank you very much, Matthias. It was a fantastic presentation, and I can see people are already asking for a recording. And as I mentioned in the group, the recording will be available for WAD members only in our closed Facebook group. So if you missed something, you can find the recording there. And I fully support that it's so much easier to address some question in other country to your WAD friend or other member colleague in order to get some help and support rather than know all these websites in different countries. But that's really important to have that information in place. So really, thank you, Matthias, for sharing this. Just maybe one question from my side. How long does it take to get an answer from authority when you send the request, normally, according to practice?
I would say in practice, the very best is 4 days. Average would be maybe 8-9 days. And if it pretty much depends. For example, the problem I recently had, it was a very tiny, small authority which was locked down, and then I waited 8 weeks. But in normal times, I would say something between 4 days up to 14 days. This is a normal response time on written inquiries.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good.
Yeah.
Because in Russia, in some far places, you can wait for quite a long period of
Yeah,
time.
I can imagine.
Even
Yeah.
when it gets your mail gets to the address, it can be
Yeah.
days and weeks.
Yeah. So yeah, we are quite happy. So I have so much complaints from colleagues who say, "Oh, the German authorities are stupid." No, they aren't. At least they give you an answer always. So and you can phone them up. So I'm quite happy with that. It's just you need to have some patience, and that's really important.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Thank you very much, Matthias. Really appreciate your presentation, and I hope we'll be able to see each other soon.
Yeah. I hope to see you in Prague. It's really fantastic. I'm not sure whether that will going to happen, but let's get fingers crossed to see many of you in Prague. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, we hope for the best.
Okay. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.